The purpose is threefold. First, we wish to obtain citizens' opinions, suggestions, and priorities regarding this program. Second, we wish to provide you with required program information. And finally, we wish to provide you with information about the proposed projects and engage in a public discussion. Section 104B3 of the Housing and Community Development Act outlines national objectives for the Community Development Block Program. The program has three main objectives: to benefit low and moderate persons, to prevent or eliminate slums and blight, and meeting community development needs having a particular urgency, sometimes called urgent need. The program further outlines certain eligible and ineligible uses of funds. For the Downstate Business Stabilization Program, funds are restricted to working capital costs by for-profit businesses. In order for the Downstate Business Stabilization Grant to be an eligible use of these federal funds, it must meet one of the national objectives I just mentioned. In this case, the program meets the urgent need criteria as it is a response to the coronavirus pandemic. The state of Illinois has repurposed $20 million of federal funds into this program and will allocate grants of up to $25,000 to businesses impacted by the pandemic throughout the state, so long as they are in non-entitlement communities. The program must adhere to other federal requirements. None of these funds will be used in the involuntary displacement of people or businesses. Records regarding the project will be available to the public in the same manner as other documents kept by the county. Applications for assistance are available for public view at the office of the county clerk during posted hours. It's also important to note that other community development and housing needs of Peoria County goes without saying. We're living through unprecedented times. The needs of our county under normal circumstances are all still ones we need to consider and work on, but this pandemic puts new challenges in front of us. We have developed a list of priorities which should help us focus on our work. Obviously, there are and will be other issues and priorities, but this is a start. First, we should assist small businesses throughout Peoria County that have been negatively impacted by this pandemic. Next, we should improve resources to help those same businesses as well as our residents. We should also assist wherever possible individuals with access. We should also assist wherever possible individuals, like access to social, financial, and government services and other resources to recover from this crisis. We should develop a plan for the county and the region to build our economic resiliency so that our businesses and citizens can withstand crises like this. During the public comment portion of this hearing, I would invite any of you to add, subtract, or alter any of the priorities I just recommended. Now, the proposed project before us is to apply to the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity for grants to be given to small businesses impacted by coronaviruses for working capital. The following is a list of the businesses who have applied for the program. They're in your packet. The other working projects are as follows. Number one, CDAC Incorporated for $16,050. Number two, Jim Koo Incorporated for $25,000. Number three, Canham B&R Inc. for $25,000. Number four, JP Law Services Inc. Number five, Wayne Printing for $25,000. Number six, Gill's Supper Club for $25,000, totaling $140,956. I now open the floor for any members of the audience to comment on any of the matters we are here to discuss in this meeting, as well as any members of the board. And I will ask Mr. Fennell to handle that, please. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance here today and your participation. We will conclude this hearing.
Just for the record, if we could correct the date in the first paragraph of the resolution, that the public hearing is held on April 24th, not 23rd, just so it's accurate.
I knew what you meant, Mr. Ricker. Happy to. Mr. Fennel.
Aye.
Mr. Rand.
Aye.
Ms. Allison.
Aye.
Mr. Dillon.
Aye.
Ms. Pastucha. Ms. Relaford. Mr. Renault. Mr. Ricker.
Aye.
Mr. Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Mr. Salzer.
Aye.
Ms. Williams. Motion carries unanimously.
As we do every 6 months, we review the executive committee minutes.
Mr. Fennel? Yes, sir. Can I just make a clarification in our documents that we received? Shouldn't these businesses' employee tax identification numbers be redacted instead of public information? I mean, that's like a business's social security number. Because we have, I mean, just going through this, you have people's tax identification certificates in here and all sorts of stuff in here that could be. But I'm just reading through here and I have
Yes,
businesses.
they did.
Yes, so
Might need to be taken off of our,
we'll figure out a way to take it down and properly redact that and put it back up.
okay.
Good point, Jimmy. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, can I have a motion for the executive session minutes? Mr. Rand, Mr. Allison, Ms. Allison? Any, okay, I'll let you go ahead and give the description. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. As you mentioned, we do this every 6 months, and after reviewing the index of the executive session minutes, it is, as usual, the recommendation of the state's attorney's office that all previously held minutes continue to be held, as the need for confidentiality does still exist, and to destroy executive session audio recordings that are more than 2 years old, except for any that relate to pending litigation.
Any further discussion, comments? Okay, take roll.
Mr. Fennel.
Aye.
Mr. Rand.
Aye.
Ms. Allison.
Aye.
Mr. Dillon. Ms. Pastucha. Ms. Relaford. Mr. Renault. Mr. Ricker.
Aye.
Mr. Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Mr. Salzer.
Aye.
Ms. Williams. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Now we're on the point where I'm trying to get to the different committees to have them speak about their meeting.
Mr. Fennel, before we go on
Yes, sir.
to that, might I ask the privilege of the floor for Tori Dalkoff?
Absolutely.
Tori, if you would. Yeah, I know. You thought you'd get away. So we're going to try to embarrass him a little bit here. For those of you that have been around the EDC, the city of Peoria, the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission, and many, many things rural in terms of economic development conversations, the connection between business and government. For the EDC, the organization with whom we have a contract for these services, in the sponsor of today's DCEO presentation, Tori has been at the front of the rural economic development stuff. And he probably is the first person I laughed at when he said, yeah, people can grow hemp for a profit, you know, and that was before the state legalized marijuana for personal use. It passed the medical question. So he was pushing hemp before marijuana became cool. That's how I'm always going to remember him. His tour of duty here in Central Illinois with Chris Setti over at the EDC and Chris's predecessor, Jennifer Daly, is coming to an end. I've been advised that he is going off to greener pastures, and I wanted to wish you very, 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 very well. I know that in the parlance of the smaller communities in Peoria County, a couple of township officials and a mayor or two have commented on how resourceful you've been and that you always get back to them. This is something that's been particularly important for our rural members who wanted to see what the value was in the EDC because they have believed it to be centrally a business relationship promoter with cities only, larger cities such as urban Peoria. You've done an awful lot to change that perspective, so we'd just like to know where you're going and wish you well. So where are you going?
I really appreciate the kind words. I am remaining a proud resident of Peoria, city of Peoria in the county, and I'm remaining in rural business development. But I'll be working in Mason County. I'm going down to help with we'll call it the evolution of a rural news business. So I'm excited to take on this challenge and get involved in rural development in a very different way, but seeing it from the business perspective. So,
I understand they grow some really unique popcorn in
and some green beans too here. So
green
excited
beans.
to get
Okay.
that.
Well, listen. Aside from my giggles about the first time you told me that you could sell hemp, and that was good, we wish you the best. I think your enthusiasm and personality have added a lot to the team at the EDC, and as chairman of the county board, I want to thank you for everything you've done for us. You've always been there when I've asked you to help one of our rural communities with something, and we wish you all the luck in the world. And whichever one of us who has the pleasure of you living in their district, at least we get to keep you.
I appreciate it, and I would just encourage the county and all the municipalities to continue really taking things such as the future of agriculture, the future of food systems, and how those things can really become a very important part of economic development, both in our small towns and in the city of Peoria, and on our very important resource of agricultural land. So I appreciate all the work that I've been able to be a part of with all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for our first committee, we have operations. Rob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There were no resolutions, and they met in executive session to discuss some labor relations.
Okay, thank you. Public safety justice. Paul, you on there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay.
I don't have the exact name in front of me. We had two resolutions, both the judicial one was for $25,000 for a grant they were getting. Scott will have to, if you want to go more in depth, Scott will have to tell you that one. Other resolution, again, for the courts was the $38,800. They were both grants that they, I think, normally get, and this will be for next year. And if I'm correct, I don't think the county has to pay for the ones with personnel. We don't pay any of the FICA or the IMRS. Is that correct, Scott?
That's correct. The two resolutions are grant programs that do include the opportunity for us to reimburse our pension-related costs.
Okay, is that it then, Paul?
That was pretty much all, we had going on it. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Okay, I think not. Then we'll move on to Phil, infrastructure.
Thank you. And before I talk about our one resolution, I just want to mention that Scott gave us a good update on our facilities master plan and how it was going. One particular thing, if you remember, at the end of May, we did that hot water project, and as a result, we saved so much money on that he said Dan had already begun a couple projects right there at the courthouse, and they seem to be going very well. And he also updated us on the master plan in regards to the jail projects and so forth, and those are somewhere between 80 and 85% completed. And so our facilities plan seems to be going very smoothly for us. We had one resolution, and that resolution had to do with the township motor fuel tax. A couple different bodies, they took bids for their seal coating and tailing. Only one of them approved the bid to bring it back to our highway engineer, and Amy McLaren, who is the custodian of those township motor fuel tax. She said that Radnor Township is the one that is submitting a bid to us, and Radnor Township wants their seal coating and towing to be done by R.A. Conan out of Tremont, and I think it's to the tune of about, just a little over $250,000, if I remember, and so we did approve that, and they will proceed with that. So that's the one resolution that we did adopt.
Thank you, Phil. You always give a good report. Appreciate it. Okay. Land use. Jimmy?
We had, let's look back and forth, but we had a land split that broke apart 3 different pieces of land for a family, and then we had a subdivision waiver that went along with that, but I had pulled up here. We had our own case petition that changed some of our ordinances, but the main ones were, we had typically in the past had always had to post our yearly schedule of meetings for the ZBA. In January, we no longer have to do that, so it gives the board greater flexibility if they don't want to call off a meeting. So they have different posting rules now, so they'll be following that. On the special use permits, this was actually a suggestion of an attorney that is on the board, but it added stricter language in the special use permits to recover legal costs. The person's already in charge of paying any fees that are associated with it, but if there would be other legal issues arise out of the case, that they would have to cover the legal costs. And there's case law from another county that use that, so that's tightening up the rules for the county to cover us. And then the other things are after we had passed the cannabis rules, this is the cleanup language after the state had tweaked the bill after the fact. So there was basically about outdoor locations and smoking on locations. So there was some of that cleanup in there. So that was the main ordinances that we had.
Thank you, Jimmy. County Health, Sharon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had no resolutions, however, we did have some discussion on Headington Oaks. Shauna went over the closure action plan with us. We also found out that we are now currently at 5 residents in the facility. There was a discussion on the referendum that will be coming up on the ballot regarding the Headington Oaks property. And there's a committee that is being formed that will be an educational campaign to the voters regarding that sale of the property. We also, Scott told us about the, regarding the Health Facilities Review Board and the IDPH, that letters are being submitted regarding the license suspension and the temporary closure letter that will go out this week.
Okay, thank you. Ways and Means, Steve.
Thank you. The only resolution this month was the monthly delinquent taxes, which did pass unanimously.
And then budget, everybody was here for the budget. So we had the one resolution concerning the bonds for authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds for refunding them. So that was our discussion and our resolution. So is there any other thing from anybody else that would like to speak to this meeting before we adjourn? Yes, Kate.
I just have a question. Since we're not going to meet again until after the 4th of July, and I know that a lot of communities are deciding not to have their 4th of July fireworks celebrations, I'm going to assume that a lot of people are maybe planning on doing their own thing, and I didn't know if there had been a thought to maybe putting a press release out and reminding people of the laws in Peoria County, and also maybe from the health department side, putting out, safety measures to take if you are doing fireworks?
We can certainly coordinate with the health department from the safety side. The enforcement side is the sheriff's office, so we'll coordinate with the sheriff and see if we can put something out.
Thank you. Any other miscellaneous? No? Then we will be adjourned. Thank you.